Calvin asked me today to cover a little bit on this, on our unstructured data portfolio. We have a very broad portfolio in this area in terms of the technologies that we support, the different segments that we sell into from a customer perspective, and I'll go through some of the portfolio and try to tease out some interesting pieces of it after talking about all this block storage all day long. So as you guys know, most of the storage that's going to be consumed, the data that's going to be generated over the next few years is definitely going to be unstructured. So, the stats are anywhere between from 80% to 90% of some of the new capacity that's going to be put on the floor is mostly unstructured data, and a lot of it's going to be server-based. At the end of the day, a number of different workloads in terms of file, object, semi-structured, Hadoop. We're seeing a phenomenal amount of Hadoop being deployed in large and medium-sized enterprises. It's actually dwarfing enterprise storage from a capacity standpoint. We go on-prem to a number of customers, large banks. 40 petabytes represents our enterprise storage footprint, and 120 petabytes represents our analytics and unstructured data footprint, right? So quite a bit of data out there, and some of it's served by loosely confederated open source and analytics. It's a very dynamic space. Some of it definitely unstructured data in the form of file, scale-out NAS, and object. Some of it, definitely sits within the enterprise on traditional enterprise storage. We'll talk a little bit about some of our offerings in that space. So a lot of sprawl in terms of what we have out there in the market in terms of I/O and performance capabilities, in terms of the footprint within a customer. What I'm definitely starting to see a little bit is that for the spaces that are requiring very low latency, high bandwidth in some cases, but a lower overall footprint from a storage perspective, being definitely served by all flash and hyper-converged on discrete systems. And then a lot of this concept that we talk about, flash and trash, is collapsing onto scale-out file and object workloads, mainly server-based, very dense. There's a lot of, certainly a lot of news this week in terms of HDDs and capacities and some of the breakthroughs there in different ways to manufacture those. So quite a bit of storage is going to be put on the floor in both formats in the years to come, which is good from a storage vendor perspective. So from our portfolio perspective, we have a number of different solutions that we lead with for different customer sizes and different use cases, right? On the low end, we've got a very capable, industry-leading solution in Store Easy. At the very low end, we sell quite a bit of this certainly to SMBs and through the channel. And I'll talk to you about some of the, what we have there from a portfolio perspective. For unified systems, 3PAR with our file persona has quite a bit of investment from our engineering team, and I'll talk about some of the things that we just released that are new about file persona. Definitely for customers that are looking for that unified block and file type of aspect, we have a great solution in 3PAR file persona. Two of the areas from a workload perspective that are growing significantly that we serve with some very tightly integrated partnerships is around scale-out file, scale-out NAS for hot and warm machine and application data. So we've got a great partnership with Qumulo. We've been capturing a number of customers in this area deployed on our Apollo systems, and certainly an area of limitless capacity for warm to cold archives, active archives, and object-based data is our Scalable Object Storage solution with Scality. And we've got a number of very, very large design wins to mid-sized deals across a number of different workloads and use cases. So from our portfolio perspective, we have a number of solutions that fit different workloads and different customer sizes. These are all available through the channel, and we'll get into some of those specifically. So for Store Easy, usually this is for just trying to find the right fit for our customers in terms of, these are usually the typical problem statements too time-consuming, too complex. Don't have dedicated storage admins nor storage specialists. Cost can be an issue, certainly. And they want to have a number of different data services that essentially this, for a lot of customers, this is their only storage solution, right? And at these price points, bringing a system that's fully featured to the game is definitely something that our customers are looking for. So for us, our Store Easy systems are, they're very simple to manage, and we have a number of things that we do for very simple administration, template-based deployment, some very nice integration with our server management console, and things that you get from the HPE ProLiance, especially the Gen 10, and it's very cost effective, and it's very fully featured in terms of, has a number of availabilities. It's multi-protocol. I've got a bunch of things included in terms of data services, security, and it's a really good solution for entry to mid-range customers.
So this would be like again, I'm throwing out the competitor, but like a storage ready node from Dell EMC.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it's the DX series or the
the deeper 19 or 20.
No, the DX series, the DS400, and then the NetApp 2200 space that sort of competes in those areas. We have a number of different capacity and price points for customers that want either a tower solution, 1U rack systems, 2U that are density optimized. Certainly, we have gateways that go in front of our existing block, solutions. If you want to have more capacity, or at least flexible capacity, or you want it as an add-on, from a performance standpoint. So we have a lot of different offerings in this space, and we actually sell quite a bit of Store Easy. It's the leading product family for under 15K for NAS in the market from an IDC perspective.
And that's a Windows storage server.
Yep. Yeah, and we do a lot of stuff with the system itself in terms of, we have a very slick installation and deployment experience that's all appliance-sized, and we make it very easy for the customers to deploy.
So is this running Windows file storage services?
Yeah, we're running Windows storage, Windows Server, and they don't really call it Windows Storage Server any longer. So it's just,
You should update your product page.
What's that?
You should update your product page instead of explicitly called that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then one more question. What does this mean in relation to the JBODs that are in the HP line?
Oh yeah, so we still manufacture JBODs that are the standard. I think they're 2U. And so we have the 2U with the small form factor drives that are available, and then we have the very dense, like the D6000 JBODs as well too. Those are available.
Still available, but they're not quite so simple to manage, right?
No, so JBODs are JBODs, right? So we use them. Well, I guess from a simplicity of management, they come with a number of front end, connectors. Either you can do SAS or SATA. So essentially, it doesn't come with any intelligence. So you're plugging that into either an existing server.
But you could actually, you could use a store server to manage attached JBOD.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So these are all expandable, right? In terms of if you want additional capacity outside of the initial server footprint, you can add JBODs. They certainly scale from a platform perspective, and we sell those JBODs, so they're definitely upgradable. Yeah, and it's all managed under the same umbrella from a hardware monitoring perspective and configuration.
Waters at the small business lines, though, doesn't it?
I guess so. The one thing I do have some concern over in this market in general, right, is that if you or I, we're going to open up a small business now, right? Are you going to buy one of these, right?
I might consider buying something like that.
You may. I'm just saying, like, as a in the future, right? These are solutions that provide, a number of customers some great utility, right? In general, as HCI becomes more affordable, right, over time, or some of these workloads that you'd have running on these move to SaaS, right? I think those are things that we try to keep abreast of, is how, when that tipping point happens.
Which is really why I asked the question.
Yeah.
because there does seem to be some bleed at the bottom end of the real enterprise architectures.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we can provide a better experience, and there's a number of things that come with the operating system and that allow you to do some hybrid cloud, right? We've got some really cool things going on in this space at these capacity points with Azure Stack, for example, that allow you to have on-prem and off-prem. So there's definitely some other things that we can talk about at a higher level from a cloud perspective. So Store Easy, great solution for the entry and the SMB customer, multi-protocol system, a number of different capacity points, very easy to deploy, very easy to manage. Store Easy. That's why we branded it that way. The next up that I talked about in terms of the portfolio is around our unified offering with 3PAR file persona. So this natively addresses a number of different workloads and data types outside of block storage. So what you can do is it's easy provision, obviously all the things that come with 3PAR from a monitoring system, call home, a number of the future integrations we're going to do, with various parts of the predictive portfolio, data center space efficiency, all these data services that we have available on 3PAR applicable to both block and to file persona. So in terms of one shared capacity group, we're not forcing customers to, take capacity and pin it to just file, or capacity and pin it just to block. You can have one giant capacity pool that serves both protocols. And you can address a whole number of different workloads for 3PAR that include virtualization, databases, applications, data preservation and governance, content management. We got a bunch of solutions there with ISVs, home directories, user shares, things that you do across the block and file spectrum. And that's essentially why we designed and offer the unified experience on 3PAR. It really gives you a unified platform to suit most, if not any, requirements for this class of customer. So it's one operating system, one architecture, one management console. So file persona is endemic to the 3PAR architecture. It's part of Inform OS, runs directly on the controller nodes, and it's supported on all the 3PAR systems that ship today. So the system that everyone loves, right? The 8,000 systems, 8,200, 8,400, 8,440, 8,450, the new 9,450 systems, the 2,000 series, the 20,000 series high-end systems. Same code across multiple different capacity and performance vectors, running both block and files. It's supported on both platforms. As you see, you get quite a bit of scalability at the high end. Very good affordability for the 8,000 series when you want to jump into that platform.
Yeah. Probably worth pointing out, maybe you said it and I went through my brain and I didn't hear you. How much does it cost?
The file persona?
Yeah.
Oh, it's part of the architecture.
It's free.
Yeah, it's not free.
It's included with 3PAR. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's included in the astounding value that you get for 3PAR. When you buy a 3PAR frame, along with all the other data services that we talked about today. So, our philosophy on the licensing for 3PAR is all inclusive, right? So you purchase that frame and you make a choice to get into that architecture. All those data services are available for you, regardless of protocol, data services, on box, off box. That all comes with it. Number of different protocols that we provide here from a file persona perspective. We've got all the SMB flavors, NFS v4, v3, as well as FTP and object REST API access on those unstructured data shares. A number of different file data services, everything from quota management, file snapshots, file locking, cross-protocol access, all the security features you get from ACLs and whatnot. A number of different infrastructure services that include things like Active Directory, LDAP, virus scanning. We support Express Protect and integration with RMC, so for very rapid backup. If any of you guys have ever tried to do backups of file systems, they can be a total pain in the ass. And we have some really good integration with RMC that makes them very fast for backups and restores. So good integration between 3PAR and StoreOnce in that regard. And then it leverages a number of the capacity virtualization data services that are part of the platform. So everything from thin provisioning to thin persistence, thin dedupe, all of the data compaction algorithms, the call home, the web services API. So that's all available as a unified platform, if you guys haven't seen that before. So one of the cool things is that the data reduction technologies contribute to the data compaction for both block volumes as well as for FPGs and file shares. So all the greatness of zero to tech, deduplication, compression, data packing, that's going to give you a great data reduction on file-based storage as well as block, right? So that's all applicable across both protocols. So you get a pretty good featured system that will help you reduce your overall footprint of unstructured file-based data. Okay, that's going to be available for you not only on the block LUNs, the deco LUNs, and in volumes. It's going to be applicable for those volumes that make up your file provisioning groups and ultimately your NAS shares. Okay. Cool thing that we have here as well too is that there's a number of, I know that we were talking before a little bit about containers, and there's some chatter on the Twitter channel there around which protocol is going to be the most applicable for containers and some of the microservices architecture moving forward. So we do have programmable interaction with file persona managed objects through the web services API. So you can provision FPGs, your virtual file stores, the shares, the directory permissions, all that stuff is available through the API engine. And you can also plug that into a number of third-party automation frameworks. So you're actually have the ability to do this all through programmatic interfaces and use the file services for more than just straight up workload consolidation and file sharing with your departmental friends, right? So you got some access to some really new cool capabilities with Chef and Ansible and Puppet and some things you can do on the file side there. So we have a number of things that you can do with some of those protocols. From a confidence standpoint, we got a number of capabilities here with local recovery, right? So in-place data protection with previous versions, integration in Windows, snapshots, certainly works right within the DR framework of the 3PAR operating system. So you've got sync, async replication, integration with NDMP, and I mentioned before the backup capabilities that are unique with Express Protect, some pretty cool stuff there. We've got a number of things on the security side. So in addition to self-encrypting drives from a security, on-disk security perspective, you've got things like file retention and Worm. We're actually we just released a whole new capability on a file auditing framework, right, which is becoming more important for files. What's that?
Is that Qumulo?
Nope. This is part of 3PAR operating system. I'll get into some of the specifics here. So what's new essentially in 3PAR OS 3.3.1 MU1, we released a whole set of capabilities. Some new on-disk formats that we've enabled to have a little bit of a richer experience in terms of cross-protocol, so sharing data between SMB and NFS. The file access auditing framework, so it's going to give you the ability to plug in third-party applications and tell you when files have been changed, right? So from a security perspective, this is very important for security and compliance customers. I'll get to the scalability in a little bit. We moved in support SMB 3.1.1, right? So I think one of the things to keep in mind is that finding yourself a commercial SMB stack on the market these days is kind of hard to come by. So we have a really good one. It's ours, and we're going to continue to invest in that as well as share those protocols with other parts of the organization as well too.
How does that hold up commercially price-wise? Because who are you competing against there? Like the Synologies and QNAP, or some other higher-end one that's lower market price?
Are you talking about just the overall price of the solution, or?
No, I mean, you were mentioning like a commercial SMB type focus one. I'm wondering, is it like, low-end commercial Synology QNAP, or is it, like EMC Unity is like, yeah, it's commercial, it's good for the SME, etc.
This is like squarely in price band. You could shove it down into price band 4, but it's price band 4, 5, 6, that type of the mid range and above.
Mm.
The QNAP and Synology start in price band 1 and scale up into price band 2, and I don't even know if they get up into price band 3 from a pricing perspective. So like price band 1 is sub 5K.
Because when I think of commercial, I think of like tiny low MSC.
Oh, I'm saying when I say commercial SMB stack, essentially there's not that many offerings in the market where you can go get yourself an SMB stack, right? So you either develop it on your own or you use Samba, right? So this is our own.
Oh, that SMB.
Yeah.
I was thinking small mid-sized business.
Oh yeah, sorry for the taxonomy shift there. Sorry.
Now we understand.
Yeah. We just had a.
Please say SIFs from now on.
We had a hash collision. No, nobody says SIFs. That's not the right thing to say. Come on, nobody uses SIFs.
It's the right thing to say for one particular person.
Yeah, we had a hash collision on that one. Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, to your point though, we are starting to see some of those solutions more often, right? As they move from your home media center, your home backup type of thing, they are scaling their capacities, and some of their data services up into price band 1 and 2. So so those are, I think, they're viable solutions. See what happens to them over time. One of the big things that we did recently was an increase in file system scalability. So the amount of capacity that we could address in a single file system, and then the amount of capacity we could address an entire system, right? So essentially with the latest release, we can, we're scaling to about max system capacity of a petabyte of, file system data on a 3-par system, and then, significantly increasing the amount of the size of an individual file provisioning group, as well as the files that are within that file provisioning group. So the scalability we work on every release, and it keeps on ticking. So a number of ideal use cases for the file persona. We continue to enhance some of the solution work in these areas, specifically around video surveillance, data preservation, business analytics, collaboration, typical things you see on some of the file-based protocols. So any questions on 3-par file persona? No? Okay. So I think one of the areas is that those are great solution stories in 3-par file persona for discrete data sets, capacity points in the mid-size enterprise, and certainly in the lower end customers for store easy. When we start to get into the really large petascale type of solutions, right, they take another class of deployment and architecture to address some of those capabilities, right? So new generation of these type of solutions, usually software defined, running on denser industry server hardware. You're looking at a scale of multiple petabytes, tens of petabytes to hundreds of petabytes, and certainly billions of objects or billions of files. Usually some of the traditional RAID techniques are blown out of the water at that point in terms of how you actually manage a large pool of disks, right, from a media perspective. Most of it lending itself now to erasure coding or some Reed-Solomon algorithm. No more failover in DR, not even backup at the end of the day, right? You've got multi-site and geo, erasure coding in the mix now. And then in terms of being very important is the metadata, right? So being able to access metadata asynchronously, whether it's in an object store or through some of the newer solutions through an API, so you don't have to do things like tree walks, and you can have extended metadata, are things that are becoming more important as you scale these solutions. So a couple of areas that we've invested in, not only money-wise, but engineering-wise, is two key partnerships, one with Scality and one with Qumulo, for addressing some of the markets around object as well as file. And if you take a look at Scality, we've had a very long and really good mutually beneficial relationship with Scality, where we're providing scalable storage for not only private and public. We've got a number of large service providers who are providing things like email services and archive tiers, backup tiers, as well as enabling customers to do hybrid clouds. I'll get to that in a little bit. It has all the properties of what you need from an object store, right? Erasure encoding, helping you avoid site-wide failures. It'll connect to not only existing file applications, but certainly S3 and a number of other protocols in that space. And then really what people are looking for is kind of this quote unquote unlimited growth, right? Able to start small, relatively small, and scale that out horizontally at a very competitive cost. So a lot of different things we provide here as a service based on some of our density optimized servers. So this architecture we're starting to see deployed at rack scale and data center row scale. So you can think of using systems like Apollo 4200 and 4510 in concert with each other with some of the fabric that Mark Farley discussed earlier, right? So scalable, top of rack, you're looking at 25, 40 gig, even now 100 gig switches, and then being able to deploy that in a whole data center row. And these things are very, very dense, right? So when we talk about a 4510, that's got about 5.5 petabytes in a 42U rack, right? And that'll only increase as HDD densities grow over time. So you're looking at the ability to put essentially in a data center row hundreds of petabytes. Which is pretty compelling for a number of customers. And we have customers that come to us. Like, for example, I'm working on 2 150 petabyte opportunities right now this week, right? And that's initial. Yeah. So no, so the thing is, like, we throw these numbers around on a slide. These things are real. Like they come to us and they say, I have this project. It's an autonomous car project, and this thing is going to spit out a bunch of telemetry and video over the next 36 months. And and I'm going to deploy them in pods, and this is how it's going to work. And so it's pretty cool to be working on some of these things at scale. So just from a milestone perspective, we had kind of gone with Scality as a global reseller agreement a couple of years ago, and we've done a lot of work together, right? So they're in our Alliance program. We've got custom sizing tools. As you guys have seen, we have an actual investment in them from our investment the group it's called HP Pathfinder, HP Ventures. We do a number of things for our customers in terms of factory install. We have a number of things we do with hardware integration and controlling and monitoring. We actually qualify them as part of our solution. So when we talked about Cloud Bank today with Store Once, right? And you could have an off-premises target for Cloud Bank. We have a number of customers that just deploy Scality as generally a horizontal, the object tier within their data center, and it's it acts as like a collector, right? It has unstructured data. It acts as a backup repository. It's got a number of different properties from a workload perspective, so we qualify with that. So there's a lot of solution work we do with them. Web-based sizing tool. We got a number of things to make it very easy to order and configure. These systems are pretty massive. So we've done a lot of work, and especially on the solution front, we've got a number of things on the metadata side. Certainly, video surveillance, McKesson with medical archiving, and we've got a really cool solution we just brought out, Strata, that uses Splunk and Scality together to do Hadoop archiving. We're starting to get a lot of customers that they want to get data out of their Hadoop, their active Hadoop systems, and archive that for archival purpose. It's actually cheaper to store it in an object store than on some of the infrastructure in Hadoop. So we got some really cool stuff we've been working on them with. So a couple of things that you guys might want to check out on the Scality front that we've worked on them with. They've got some, if you ever want a really cool S3 server, they've got an open source S3 server, right? So we've worked on that with those folks. If you ever want to just like have your own target that sits within, in a VM or on a server that you want to test out S3. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then another thing is since at the end of the day, object from an architecture standpoint, fairly similar between the public cloud offerings. Some of the protocols differ, but at the end of the day, they're sort of they're similar in the way they're constructed. There's a project that's open source right now called Zenko. So it's ZENKO.io. So Zenko.io, and it's an open source multi-cloud controller for object storage. So it gives you the ability to move objects back and forth or represent them across either an on-premises object store and one or more public object stores. So the ability to have sort of a multi-cloud storage controller for your unstructured data, I would highly recommend checking that out. It's pretty cool.
I'm sharing the link to it over now.
Yeah. So Scality, we've got just I didn't pack this presentation filled with customer use cases, but we have a ton. I mean, we've got references like Renault and Daily Motion, and up in my neck of the woods, we've got a number of customers up there like Staples, and just some big customers that are doing some really big design wins. Some of them start off very small, in the hundreds of terabytes, and then they scale. They keep on scaling. Pardon me. So great solution from an object store. Qumulo is a new partnership with us. I started us off a couple quarters ago, maybe about 5 or 6 months. And Qumulo, as you guys know, a great company founded by some of the original founders of Isilon. So you can think about this as Isilon 2.0 from a scale-out NAS perspective. And it's certainly customers that have warm to hot data. It's definitely file-based, strong sort of POSIX consistency required from these applications. And so the big things that we talk about from a Qumulo perspective is optimized for sort of a mixed workload and file, large files, small metadata. That's usually where a number of file systems struggle with, right, on the performance side. Flash first from a design standpoint. And then a whole bunch of things they provide around predictive analytics for file, right? So real-time visibility and control at the scale of billions, if not tens of billions of files. And so for us, really invested in scaling this partnership across a number of different verticals and specific workloads. Very high performance, very high scale. Like I said before, around the real-time visibility and control, and certainly cost efficiency. Number of customers not happy with their current solution with NetApp and EMC from a pricing perspective, nor a scalability perspective. So we help customers with this solution. So the software itself is it's a pretty good design in terms of it's going to provide you multi-petabyte data scale on-prem as well as in the cloud. So it has a hybrid cloud use case, whether you want to run some of it on premises and some of it off. Fully programmable. It runs on standard x86 hardware. The design point for our solution is around the Apollo 4200, which is a very good balance system between CPU, I/O, and the media that comes with it. So you can get a mix of SSD and HDDs. And provides a number of industry standard protocols. And some of the other areas that we find are very interesting is that even though this is scale-out NAS, this is we start to see a lot of requirements around performance, right? So this is designed for as a hybrid, flash first type of implementation, where most of the hot data, active data, and metadata writes all land on SSD cache. And I'm sure as the prices of SSDs go down, right, you can start to wrap your mind around all flash implementations in the future. So it's a pretty good architecture, and happy to point you guys in the direction and get some real details on how some of the stuff works. And then the big thing from a file workload perspective is the distribution of the different types of workloads, right? Some things are very good with large files and sequential bandwidth. Some things are very good at metadata intensive small file workloads. So this is a great solution that covers a very large gamut of different file-based workloads, which can be very challenging, as I'm sure you guys are aware, at scale. And you got a number of different capabilities in this area to utilize, not only flash but capacity oriented, for the payload, and provides you a very good price at scale. And their architecture also provides a whole bunch of efficiency at scale in terms of erasure encoding, resiliency, sparing, a number of capabilities in the architecture. So great solution. I think one of the coolest things that they provide is real-time or semi-real-time statistics on files, right, in the metadata, so that you can essentially send key value pair queries to your system, and you don't have to do extended tree walks. I mean, that's a huge problem. So if I want to say, give me the top 10 UIDs of people that have created the largest amount of data in the last 24 hours, right? I can send that query to the system and get that back asynchronously, as opposed to having to walk a whole bunch of stuff. And it's very important when managing file systems at scale, which is
how that back to role-based access control and who's accessing things they should or shouldn't, yada.
Yeah, I mean, there's basically anything from a POSIX metadata perspective, and they have extended metadata you can go and query on, and they have a pretty interesting visualization engine as well too. So just to kind of recap, we've got a number of things in market from a file and object perspective. Store Easy for those smaller customers that want either an entry NAS or an entry storage system, especially oriented towards Microsoft customers. 3-part file persona. From a sweet spot perspective, you're looking into the tens to hundreds of terabytes for a unified experience. For Scale-out NAS, our Apollo 4200 with Qumulo. And then, for customers that are looking for massive scale on the object side, I can point you to a number of references that use Scality for a lot of different workloads. And so this is sort of the way we make up our portfolio today, with our own IP and then shared IP with some really solid partnerships. And I believe Qumulo and Scality will both be here this week. So if you guys ever want, some more deep dives on the technology, they'll have some folks here. If you reach out to me, I can definitely connect the dots. So that's my story around file object, and I'm sticking to it. Any questions? Nope. All right.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Calvin, do you want to bring us home here with some
We are going to bring it home.
sage words?